everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOC Reader, and welcome welcome back to my channel. So today I am spilling the tea on a topic that has been on my mind for a few weeks now. Now this video is not sponsored, but I did try this new tea recently by this great black-owned company called Jayida Che, and I will leave the link below for all you tea drinkers. We love to support black business on this channel. So let's get into the discussion. So as always, because I am a black woman and I read mostly black books, I'm going to focus my discussion on black books. And I've been noticing a lot lately that there are just not enough depictions of black friendship in stories and just strong friendships in general. Like, one of the first things that I had noticed was weeks ago on a Black Pros podcast, Brittany had spoken about wanting more stories about black women just having fun and enjoying each other's company. And she had pointed out that so often if you want a lighthearted story featuring black women, you're directed to go read black romance. But not everybody is a romance reader. And sometimes you just want those stories that are showing black women having fun and are more lighthearted, and there's just not that many out there to choose from. I was really having trouble racking my brain to think of some adult stories where black women are having fun the way she described. And a lot of the ones that were coming to mind were from the 90s and early 2000s. So that was a problem. The only one that I could really think of is one that's technically not out yet. It does release later this year, and it is Wash Day Diaries by Jamila Rouser and Robin Smith. And this was just a fun story about black friendship. You have black women in their 20s living in New York and just experiencing daily life. Yes, they have their little daily hardships, but then you also see them on a night out having fun. And when I saw this book free on NetGalley, I immediately downloaded it, read it, and then recommended it to so many friends. And everybody I've talked to who's read this book really enjoyed it. So it's a comic series that I'm hoping is going to be expanded on after the first issue. And I really just do think that we deserve more stories about black friendship, and it shouldn't just be in one comic book series every few years or one fantasy story here and there. Like, I remember picking up the Girls Trip series by Tracy Livesay, and hearing Girls Trip, and at the time the movie Girls Trip was still very popular, I thought we were going to get a fun story about a girls trip where on the trip one of the women finds love. No, the girls trip was in the very beginning of the book. We barely got much of it, and then it turned into this small town romance where she went off on a business trip and she only called her girlfriends here and there. So I'm like, what was the point of calling it the Girls Trip series if the trip had no bearing on what happens in the book? Like, it was to the point where they could have wrote that part out and it would have changed nothing. And like, other than trying to capitalize on a popular movie starring black women by black women, I don't see why it was necessary. And that was just one instance where I said they dropped the ball with the girl aspect that they were pushing to sell that book. Same thing happened when I read The Boyfriend Project. So I wasn't really a fan of that one. What sucked me into reading it was the opening, where these women are all finding out that they are dating the same men, and we see like this viral internet date go on, and then they decide that they're all going to meet up and start hanging out. And I thought that was a really cool opening. But then again, the girlfriend aspect goes by the wayside as soon as one of them meets a man. And it's like, why do we always have to throw our girlfriends aside to get into a relationship? I mean, it's a topic that we see discussed heavily on Twitter all the time too. You need to have your friends and maintain your friends, and also maintain a healthy romantic relationship with your man. Your man should not then mean that you have to give up all your female friendship, especially because what if your relationship doesn't work out? Who's going to help you? Who's going to pick up the pieces? Not your friends? Now, there are certain age categories that are definitely more friendship focused, like middle grade fiction, because the kids are so young, often does a great job with friendship because that is the main focus in their stories and exploring those friend relationships. Now, once they hit teenager and the stories start moving into YA, there's a shift because the girls will focus more on their romantic partner, usually a boy, because those are just the types of stories that dominate YA, more so than maintaining any of their female friendships. And I'm not a fan of that dynamic. Even when I was a teen, I was complaining about how friendships were starting to go by the wayside and romance was just being forced in when it didn't need to be. Not everybody necessarily even has a boyfriend at that age, nor is it the hyper focus of their life. Throughout all my teen years, I had strong female friendships that were more important than any relationship with a boy. And I don't see that depicted enough because we always frame it as the end goal should be to be with the boy of your dreams. Now, many of us have read Wings of Ebony and its subsequent sequel, Ashes of Gold, and we all have our thoughts. I've spoken about my thoughts, and I know many of us were upset when Rue's friend Bree was basically invited to the cookout. So Rue's friend Bree is a white girl. In that type of world, she's a gray girl, and Rue kind of brings her into this all black sacred space, and she's just like, well, she's my friend, so she's accepted. Girl, you are barely accepted into this space. We don't really know you, and here you are bringing in outsiders who stole from us. Like, it didn't even make any sense. And then on top of that, that series heavily explores like educating your white friend as their first black friend, which is something that I also had a problem with, and it's something that I've also seen discussed outside of the context of this book on Twitter, because I have seen people express opinions about finding it very hard once they realize they are somebody's only black friend, or they are helping somebody navigate their first friendship with a black friend. I really can't relate to that right now because I'm not anybody's only or first right now. So other people will have to better speak on that experience than me. But it was just one of the things that bothered me in that series, because then much of the friendship also deals with education, and it is not the job of your friends to constantly educate you. Most of the time, my friends are not here to educate me. They are here to support me when I need them, and for us to have great times together. And one thing that I noticed when reading Ashes of Gold, because I was also reading it as a buddy read, so I was discussing it with Shay, Shomla, and KK, and one thing that Shomla had picked up on was the lack of even black girl friendships from Rue's past. So there is a heavy emphasis on the love triangle in that story, and there's a lot of focus on her past relationship with Julian, and then the new semi-relationship she's forming with Jamal, and there's an antagonistic relationship with this girl Jamal used to date, who is from Vizon. And Ruru is not getting along with that girl. There's some jealousy there. And Shomla asked, she said, but did Rue have any girlfriends back in East Row in Texas? Because like she keeps talking about back in the day with her and Julius and back in the day with her and Julius and all the people that she liked from her old neighborhood, but never does any mentions of any female friendships up. And that's a thing too. It was a very valid point. Like, where are her female friendships? So she knew everybody got along with so many people per the book, but never does the name of even a black female friend really come up. And it just didn't make any sense. And I've noticed a lot with YA, you don't really see these female friendships, like especially between black women, come up very often in the stories. Like oftentimes the friend is of another race, and usually the friendships are not good. And have whatever race of friends you want to have. I've always had friendships of other races. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but there's something extra special about being able to have black female friendship where your friends can relate to you, and you can bond over things like skin tone and hair and how hard it is to find your shade of makeup and just the overall black experience, dealing with things like colorism, dealing with confusion sometimes about how your heritage is depicted. And there's something special about really being able to have those heavier conversations that we don't always get to have and really talk things out. And that's one of the things that I do value black friendship for. When you're feeling all alone, there is someone who can relate to you. And that's just not always depicted in books, which is crazy because the authors will emphasize it so much in real life. Like a lot of authors have their black women writing crews. So why is none of that coming across in your work? It just makes me wonder, is publishing giving them a certain mandate that black friendships aren't what black girls want to see? Because they say these books are written for black girls, but then many times there's also only one black girl, or if there is a second black girl, sometimes she goes by the wayside depending on the book, as we saw with White Smoke. But I've also noticed that in just so many of the books I read with black women main characters, that black women are all on their own with no one to really lean on, and I just feel like a lot of that plays into the strong black woman persona that is pushed upon us. Especially in my adult reads, the women are always alone. There's no one to really turn to unless there's some man in the background that they can turn to. And friendships often go by the wayside, if they had any in the book to begin with. And we do need to discuss how our friendships really do at times keep us going, but that's not something that we like to portray in our stories because we want to show that black women are strong. So all that being said, one of my 2022 goals is to look for more stories with strong black friendships and to call out the bad friendship depictions when I see them, especially in stories for the younger set, because so many times in books for teenagers there are things that can be considered harmful or just questionable in general, and those are impressionable young minds reading those stories, and we don't always treat it as such because so many of these stories now are also trying to market themselves to an adult audience, but they need those strong characterizations, and it is our job as the adults to fight for them. If you like this video, hit that like button. Let me know what your thoughts are about black friendships in these stories. Let me know if you have any great recommendations about books that do feature strong black friendships that aren't just so more focused on romantic relationships. And as always, thanks so much for tuning in. I will check in with you guys soon. Bye.